Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway is one of the quickest short tracks in all of iRacing. Its pace brings challenges to many drivers, especially the bumps around its circuit, as well as how hard and how aggressive some drivers can be around this track. And for some competitors tonight, it will be a tough task to try and conquer this circuit. As we say good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Global SimRacing Channel's coverage for the virtual Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway for Race 5 of 2021 Season 1's campaign for the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside with the booth tonight is Samuel Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. This track has had many big names take part in many events throughout its history. Let's learn more about this track with our GSRC track guy.
The Waltrips, the Marlins, Bobby Hamilton, Jerry Mayfield, legendary names in the world of NASCAR. And they have one thing in common. They spent a good part of their early careers here at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, a track that recently took over the title of longest continuing operating facility in the U.S. from Milwaukee. Cup cars raced here until 1984, B-Class and trucks both left after 2000. This facility may have opened in 1904 at the beginnings of the track we know of today in 1958, but with modernization, it's on its way up. While many consider Nashville to be a half mile, it's actually a bit longer, at just shy of 0.6 of a mile in length. From the top down, it looks like a traditional oval, and there isn't a whole lot of difference between the four 18-degree banked corners, at least on that map. But where the character comes in is the bumps. This track hasn't been repaved since 1996, and it shows. But we could go over where all the bumps are, but they only give me about 2 minutes here. But navigating those is the key to a good lap. The All-American 400, one of the premier super late model races in the country, runs here yearly. ARCA has been making stops here again as well, and they have a huge slate of local racing here with street stocks, modifieds, trucks, and even Legends cars. And they are all vying to be that next Darrell Waltrip or Sterling Marlin, as Legends are made right here at Nashville's Fairgrounds Speedway.
Was a look at your GSRC track guide for Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. Now, let's bring in my broadcast partner for tonight, Samuel Lyman. And Samuel, what are your expectations and what we should see for tonight's action here in Nashville?
Well, it's going to be a 100-lap race around this short track as always, so that means we could see a very short race, or it means we could see a very long race, depending on how many yellow flags there are, or something in between, of course. I think we'll see the caution wave a few times today. There you see it's just 0.6 miles, 18 degrees of banking, but even on the graphic there, you can see it's a bit wider than normal for a short track, and I'm not saying the track itself is wide, but the turns. Turns 1 and 2 and turns 3 and 4 are very long turns to take up at over half a racetrack, and so it's not always easy to get your line just right. Personally, I like to be a lane or two high when I drive the ARCA cars around this joint, and you know, if you do get it wrong, that can lead to some collisions or even some spins off of the exits of the corners.
Drivers struggled with that in the modified race earlier on tonight. Drivers, meanwhile, are in the midst of a championship fight entering tonight's action. Again, this is the 5th season of this series in its campaigns, where J.R. Shepard leads by 3 points over Kenny Kibbe, the defending champion. Shepard had won the previous titles prior to that in the series. Justin Morton is in third, 8 points back. Then it's a big cushion to where James Lowe is 20 points back, trying to recover from that major incident a few weeks back that's seen his championship chances take a major hit. Mark Herzog, though, rounds out your top 5. Keep in mind, he is in a tie with Ruben Altis. Now, you mentioned the 100-lap distance. Let's take a look at the rest of those details as we get ready to go racing here in Nashville.
Yeah, and there we see them brought up on your screen there. We're about halfway through the season. This is round 5 of 11 for a 100-lap race. No tyre changes, but you can come into the pits if you needed to get some damage fixed, any damage repaired. There will be a grid inversion. The way they grid this field up, they invert the top 8 from the last race. So that's how they start tonight's race. 100 laps though, so plenty of time for the drivers to get to the front, but they will have some traffic to go through. It looks like we've got about 20 cars here.
It's going to be interesting, especially since there are some new drivers and new faces for these competitors to battle with. We'll get to that in a moment, as right now practice is underway with under 10 minutes on the clock. Track temperature 74 degrees, air temp 69 with the most cloudy skies. Also fairly windy at about 6 miles an hour or so to the west at the moment. Minimal humidity 34%, as the NSIM day is May the 1st, 2021 today for these drivers. Currently, the driver leading on top of the board, though, it's actually a tie. This is a rarity for a practice. How about an 18.961 from James Lowe and Mark Herzog? That is the first time I've ever seen a tie like that.
Ooh, the 57 getting a little loose there on screen. That's Mark Herzog. He definitely won't go fast lap with that. But unfortunately for those two drivers, Justin, that was meaningless, because in 8 minutes it's not just going to be the end of a practice session, it's going to be the start of a race session. As we mentioned, the top 8 get inverted, the qualifying... Oh, and there goes James Lowe breaking the tiebreaker. But the grid has already been set. There will be no qualifying session, so these drivers will be racing in just 8 minutes' time. So all these drivers, yeah, sure, they'd love to get the top time on the board, but really right now is time for experimenting and making sure you've got your car under you and got your line right. And we're seeing on screen right now a few drivers are definitely doing some experimenting.
That's an understatement to say the very least, as you see Kenny Kibbe among the drivers on the apron trying to get themselves rolling given this practice. But keep in mind, he is third with Spees in fourth. Brian Dean rounds out the top 5 in the session. They're the only drivers in the 18.9s at the moment. The rest of the field in the 19 flats or lower at the moment. There are some new drivers and new faces, such as Adam Shando in the field tonight. You see the number 65 he'll be driving tonight. He'll be along with Ryan Seneker and Andrew Fry, making their season debuts in the Grand National Series. Those drivers have competed across BRL competition, mainly for some of them on Friday nights in the dirt simulator. So good to see them make the way to the pavement. They had been running a couple of modified races as well as some of the street stock races over the past few weeks.
Yeah, and I really like that paint on the number 61 of Ryan Seneca. I think I might steal that. I mean, all these drivers have good paints out there. So you can see on the time and the scoring there, we've got 19 drivers here today. So again, that's not going to be good news for the drivers starting towards the back. 100 laps around the short track isn't a massive amount of time to work your way through the field. And especially, we're still seeing all the tyre smoke and all these spins here going on in practice. I think we will see a bit of that in the race today. We've already mentioned a couple of times that this isn't the easiest racetrack to get around. You see one car getting loose all on its own next to turn 4 there. And so if you are starting towards the back, or if you're at the back at any point today, not only do you have to worry about going through the field, but you've got to make sure you don't get caught up in the wreck that happens ahead of you.
Absolutely, and that leads to the question, how do you try and pass in a race such as this tonight to try and make sure you aren't involved in potential trouble?
Well, these drivers are trying to figure that out right now. I think what you got to do is try and let run. Here we go. So let's see if he can make a move on the outside here. This is what Kenny Kibbe is trying to do to the car underneath him. He's trying to use that high line, and it's going to work for him in the practice session. So maybe that's what you're going to have to do in the race. And that, actually, the car behind him just got loose off a turn and dropped back. But what these drivers are doing right now, Justin, it's only going to help them so much, because you've already mentioned it's May 1st as far as the virtual world is concerned here. Well, it's also 6:30 in the evening as far as the virtual world is concerned here, and that means this track is going to go through a bit of a change, because I think we are going to be racing into the night.
Absolutely, and keep in mind as well, the amount of rubber buildup is going to be very critical, because it does carry over from this practice session here, and how big is that amount of rubber buildup going to be? These drivers, of course, having about 20 minutes to be able to build up the rubber as J.R. Shepard now in the new quick time at 18.8.
Yeah, it's 7 thousandths of a second faster than Brian Dean's fastest lap, so it's still tight there up front. Again, that doesn't mean anything other than bragging rights right now. I think it's always a bit of a confidence booster when you're the fastest driver in practice.
But the thing is, Samuel, J.R. Shepard's been very fast once again all season. He is the all-time winner in BRL competition in the Grand National Series by a large margin. A majority of the victories have gone in his direction. Multiple-time series champion, has already gone in 3 victories this season. What type of race do you think we'll see from him tonight? He was able to compete with James Lowe for the race victory tonight in the modifieds, but lost in the long run.
Well, if this turns out to be a top groove race, and I've got to be honest, I'm not knowledgeable enough about how the cars race here to know if that's going to be the case or not, then your goal is to get up front, because if the fastest car can get up front and, we get a race where the top groove is a place to be or the outside is a place to make passes, that can make it very difficult to pass a leader. So that would be my guess, is that if you are starting towards the front, the goal is get the lead, and then you should be able to stay there, especially if you can get up high on the restarts.
For some of the air drivers, say, that want to show what they can do, what would you do if you're in their situation where you're making your first start of the season and you're also at the same time someone that you've raced against, since you do have to earn the opportunity to compete at this level, mind you, by showing racecraft? What do you do to try and say, okay, I can get the job done tonight in this type of field?
Survive. Because these drivers do have one free repair, and the Bootleg Racing League, I can talk tonight, do put on clean races most of the time. The quality of driving in this league is pretty good. But no matter how you look at it, when you come to a short track and every driver is out there racing for positions, racing for the win, and they all know that they've got one free repair in their back pocket that they can use, I think that's going to lead to a little bit of aggression, a little bit of carnage. We're already seeing plenty of single car spins just in this practice session. I think if you are a new guy today who doesn't necessarily need to win this race, but you want to come out here with a solid finish and get 100 laps under your belt, you just got to keep the car pointing in the right direction.
How big is preparation for a series such as this? As you mentioned, of course, the inversion, of course, is a major factor from the previous week, where you have to earn the opportunities to start towards the front, and when you do finish at the front, you have to work your way back to traffic. How big is practice for this type of event tonight, where drivers in many cases have already recorded more than 40 laps?
Yeah, I think you answered it right there. I mean, there's a reason the racetrack is very busy right now. There's a reason we have a lot of cars out there putting rubber down, is because they want to get in as much practice as they can. I mean, this practice session has been going on for 20 minutes, and that's actually a very short practice session, but obviously these drivers will have been in various hosted sessions or loaded up their own test sessions beforehand to get laps in, but they all want to make sure that they've got that rhythm down, heading into the 100 laps that is about to start just a couple minutes away from now. Again, no qualifying here, we're about to jump right into the race session. And when you do have a short track like this, a lap time that goes by in 19 seconds, that is the best thing to do, is just get out there and get used to the rhythm. And especially when it's a short track, it's very easy to get a rhythm going, and then it just sounds right, it feels right, and if you can carry that rhythm on into the race, it should make your night a little bit easier.
In your opinion, based on what you've seen from some of these drivers in the past, from your experiences and knowing the potential possibilities of this track, who do you feel may be the drivers you're keeping an eye on tonight? As we're following home with Justin Morton, for example, who's third now.
I've never covered an ARCA race with the Bootleg guys, I don't think.
Yeah.
I've done dirt races with them. I think very strong performer over on the dirt side is Stephen Spees, and he's currently 7th fastest here. And you know, this might be a track where being a good dirt driver can help you out today, especially with how loose it looks like these cars are coming out of turn 2. You might have to wheel it around a little bit.
Hence why I ask, of course. I know that in dirt experience, these drivers are driving like it's a dirt track tonight with some of these bumps, but practice is now wrapped up with J.R. Shepard with the quickest time with an 18.837. Remember, version for the top 8 from last week's action, which was a thriller, to say the very least, at South Boston. But these drivers are all set to go racing. Let's take a look at how they'll start for tonight with the inversion spots. It'll be Austin Belke who brings him to the green flag tonight. His quickest time in practice was a 19.1. He'll start alongside Kurt Smith in row 1. Mike Holloway will start in row 2 in the MAV TV machine, while Mark Herzog, one of the quickest drivers in practice, is one of the rising improvers this season so far, in 4th. James Lowe starts in 5th tonight. He'll start alongside Justin Morton in the TDR machine, while Kenny Kibbe in the Nocturnal Gaming machine starts in 7th. J.R. Shepard rounds out the top 8. All drivers a part of the inversion spots from last week in attendance for tonight. First drivers out of the inversion slots are Joe Segawa in 9th and Mike Allen in 10th, Samuel.
Starting in 11th place will be Ruben Ortiz, and Stephen Spees will be alongside him in 12th. Lowell Jewell, the league organizer, will be starting from 13th place ahead of Jason Mender. Brian Dean and Bruce Pearson are on row number 8, and they'll be followed by the new guys, Adam Schoen, Ryan Seneca, and Andrew Fry. And one thing that pops out to me straight away, Justin, is our pole sitter, Austin Belke, was 17th fastest out of the 19 cars in practice, so that also throws a bit of a wrench into the mix. Obviously, is that the way they're starting is not necessarily the way they're just performing in practice.
Also been in a long time penalty for Mike Holloway, so he'll go towards the back of the field. End up starting with the newcomers for today. Your keys to victory for tonight.
If you're up front, get up front and keep it there. If you're towards the back, keep it clean.
Simple indeed. Time the scoring is available for tonight, by the way, at GSRC.TV for today's action. We'll have to keep an eye on Adam Shane, Ryan Seneca, Andrew Fry, who will start 17th through 19th officially on the board. How they do. Here's one thing to keep in mind, Sammy, by the way, in the modified race tonight, there was a big one. Guess who was involved, unfortunately? Belke, after he could not get going off the jump.
Well, he has control of the field right now, so if he can't get going, everyone else is going to have to wait on him.
Last time they made a start in BRL competition here, it was 3 wide with an incident in the modifieds. Tonight, for the Grand National Series, a clean launch will underway for Nashville. And a good launch for Belke, already single file. Kurt Smith able to get the jump, while James Lowe having to defend 2 different lines. Mark Herzog kept it side by side for 3rd.
Ooh, one car loose up high there and dropping all the way back. Is that Mark?
Yes. Wow. Sent it a little bit too hard into the corner, and that lost him a ton of time. One more car up and towards the wall is Mike Allen, already back to 18th position. We stay green already. J.R. Shepard on the bottom side looking to take away the top 5.
Yeah, now you see 2 laps in the books without any major incidents. Oh, very close there, J.R. Shepard. A bit of a punt up the back of number 14 of Kenny Kibbe. They get away with it, though.
Bit of a check-up effect, and that's one of the tough parts is there's different braking marks, and you have to keep in mind some will really back up these corners here to try and save the tires, Samuel.
Yeah, I think these drivers are being very sensible right now. Obviously, in practice, we would have seen 20 wrecks by the time they got to the 4th lap, but like this. And there's one, a hard wreck from 2nd place. Kurt Smith, and he comes back down in front of other cars.
Caution is out as the newcomers are all involved. 5-6 cars involved minimum, as wow. It looked like James Lowe got the back end of Kurt Smith's car there to bring out the first caution of the night. Coming to lap 5. Off into turn 3. No, Kurt Smith lost it on his own. Not even a touch.
Oh, error looseness, I think, is a thing on iRacing. I wonder if that had something to do with it. Lowell Jewell was one of the ones who sustained heavy damage trying to get through all that.
Yeah, here's it right there, and you see just lost the back end, and then bop. Major overcorrection as the rest of the pack nowhere to go.
Yeah, that's low drawl on the bottom side. I didn't see who that was who went up in the air, but I think we can look down that pit road and get an idea of what our casualty department looks like. Remember, everyone gets one free repair. You definitely don't want to be using it on lap 5.
Unfortunate for all the newcomers, they're the ones who have to use them. Not the best of starts for their series seasons.
Yeah, well, we mentioned that during the pre-race. That's one of the risks you run from starting at the back here, is having to get through all the carnage ahead of you, and of course the new drivers start at the very back.
Bossman Lowell Jewell also is going to have to use faster repair UC. So that is now already 4 drivers having to use repairers the first few laps of this action. It is still Belkey, then James Lowe, Kenny Kibbe, J.R. Shepard in the top 4, Herzog, Morton, Zagawa, Spees inside the top 8. Plus 5 quietly for Jason Menda, should know. He's up to 9, able to avoid some of the carnage.
Yeah, and Kurt Smith is still in the pits. Obviously, he can take a free repair, but because he hit the wall so hard and his engine blew, he had to tow his car to the pits. So that's why he's sitting into the pits right now. He's waiting for iRacing to tow his car there. So he'll be at least 3, maybe even more laps down by the time he gets back out there. There are lucky dogs in iRacing. Unfortunately for Kurt, he's the only car off of a lead lap right now.
He's now rolling with the fast repair 2, so make it now 5 drivers already of the 19 who have had to come in for damage repair, but for Austin Belkey, had some good performances for the past couple seasons, was also fairly sporty here the last time here. Green flags back out, and a decent launch for him as well. James Lowe, though, nearly keeping it side by side, tries to set it on the brakes.
This is a much tighter start than the original start of this race. They will be cautious then, but here we go. The top 6 are still side by side all the way through for the first 3 rows. And Austin Belkey, I think, was getting a little bit loose coming off of turn 4 there. It's still a drag race. He edged to James Lowe at the line there. And let's see which line's going to come out on top. Where's the record of that?
Caution is out to around 10th position. Commentator's curse strikes quickly. Jason Menda among the drivers involved. Just like that, he gets some of the worst of it in this caution flag as some of the newcomers said hello to his left side forward after contact with Brian Dean sent around the 45.
Yeah, I don't think this was as ugly as the first one though, so it's contact on the entry of a turn. Like we say, these turns are so long that there's different ways to get around them, and that means everyone has slightly different braking points. They only had a 20-minute practice session, so they're just shaking off a couple of cobwebs here, I hope, and a couple early cautions to start this race. Good news, obviously, for Kurt Smith. He'll be able to get a wave around and be only 2 laps down.
Bright side, since he was just rolling as they took the one to go signal last caution flag period. Mike Allen is also coming for a fast repair usage. He slammed hard into that door, and you can see looks like he might actually go for the manual repair here. Save the fast repair. Menda, though, has already been involved in this incident and got a tiny bit of damage in the last one, so he's used his. So Allen electing to bank that fast repair just in case. You can see big time damage though in the front nose.
Yeah, but that's a smart decision, though, especially lap 12 on the race where you've already had 2 cautions. Your car's not that badly damaged. It's a short track, so any aero or cosmetic damage isn't going to be slowing you down too badly. I think that's smart for him to stay on the lead lap. And unfortunately, he's still at the back of her pack, so the chances of him getting involved in another incident right now are actually kind of high.
Indeed. We'll see how this all plays out for Austin Belkey here as he's still the control car here. Approaching lap 14 this time by James Lowe in second. Kibbe and Shepard round up the top 4. Then Herzog, Morton, Speeds, and Segal urgent spots. The only our drivers not to use a fast repair in what's been already an attrition-filled race. Altice, Dean, Mike Holloway, Bruce Pearson with a brand new number. Still, lights are on top of the iRacing pace car. Expecting drivers to be able to get the one to go this upcoming time by.
Yeah, so the reason I thought this might become a high groove race as we go on is because we saw so many cars spinning off the exit of a corner during practice. It's normally an indication that you want that high line, you want that wider arc to get through the turn without spinning on the exit of a corner. That being said though, Austin Bolke, at least in the short run here in the early stages, is able to use that low line to defend the lead. And right now we have a pretty good race going. We only saw one good lap of green flag racing there under the last pre-start, but the top 3 rows were all side by side by side by side. So that means we have 2 grooves at this very moment. I don't know if that will change as the race goes on and the tyres get worn, but that's why we watch.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, at this type of racetrack, you mentioned the side by side by side. It's one where it's known to be difficult to pass at times, Samuel, because the bottom line can work when you're side by side off the corner because the top line has to lift off the gas. The top line can pinch down and also has to lift off said gas. Austin Dunkey's on the loud pedal, meanwhile, up the front. Off and away as Kenny Kibbe with a great launch inside for second.
Yeah, so here we go. We've got a nice little battle for second place as Austin Bolke pulls away a little bit in that Jeff Gordon-inspired number 24 livery. And we're riding on board J.R. Shepherd here. He's going to move down low and try and make it up into third place following Kibbe on the low line. Kibbe trying to edge out the 99 for second.
One car hard on the wall in the backdrop. It's Ruben Altes. One more spins around. It's Bruce Pearson. Under caution once again. Belke will continue to lead as a result. Low is going to jump to third as a result of this yellow. This is why Belke came out.
Yes, sir.
It started originally with Ruben Altes.
Oh, wow. Happened now on the front straight, yeah.
He got hit a couple times here.
That was the MBNA car, the 22 of Brian Dean, who turned him into the outside wall. I'm not seeing any damage on Dean.
See that little bit of a hit from Pearson.
That's on the exit, yeah.
Yeah, just that little tap was enough to destabilize Pearson, but obviously the contact started in the middle of the straightaway, and this is a tough track, mind you, Samuel, where because of how tight the corner camber can be on the exit, many times drivers can just smack into that wall. By the way, Kurt Smith is your lucky dog under this caution flag. So on the bright side, Kurt Smith is probably happy.
Yeah, so the thing that was throwing me off there, that was Brian Dean in the 23 that turned him on the outside wall on the front straight. I was getting the 2 cars confused because they got similar numbers, the 22 and the 23, and similar livery, black and green. So Brian Dean is actually in the pits right now to get a couple of fenders knocked back into place on his car.
Can confirm, by the way, there was contact down the straightaway between Altes and Dean. Both drivers have now come in, as mentioned, for repairs, for fast repairs. In particular, Bruce Pearson is not. Bruce Pearson is in 15th position. This caution flag, not a good omen when half the field has already used fast repairs, is it, Samuel?
No, but you know what? Each record's got a little bit less intense each time. I think these drivers are starting to sort it out, and they're all in the same team speed channel. So I'm sure a couple of them might have choice words to say to one another, but that includes the league admin in that team speak channel, and you know these cautions seem to be going on for a few laps, so they have plenty of time to sort it out amongst themselves. And I'm sure they're aware that we've got spectators here today that want to see a good show put on, and they don't want to wreck either. So hopefully they're getting themselves sorted out and we'll start to see some green flag racing here. At the very least, it's nice to see all of cars still running.
Indeed, and as well, keep in mind though, with these caution flags, this puts on there multiple heat cycles, Samuel, already on these tires as we get the one going.
I don't think the tires have even got up to temperature yet.
Yeah, but still, the heat cycles can inflate and deflate, if that makes sense, with the tires, and can cause a bit of trickiness with the tires when you build several dozen heat cycles.
Well, Austin Bulkey doesn't seem to think the racing line has changed yet at the very least, because once again he's going to restart on the low side here, and I won't be surprised if once again we see him leading out of turn 2. Kenny Kebby to his outside.
Bulkey with an arrogant launch, green flags back out. Underway once again, 78 laps to go from the Fairgrounds Speedway. Bulkey, though, this time not able to keep it single file and hits the bumps and loses the lead. Down the back stretch to Kitty. Here comes J.R. Shepard. He falls. The conga line is lowest on the bottom under Justin Morton.
All right, so I've been waiting for that to happen. It took us about 20 laps for the high line to finally seem to come in. J.R. Shepard up into second place. So let's see if Bulkey can hold on to third. Maybe not. Still got more cars coming around up high.
Disaster for Lowe, where he is now struggling to find a way to get himself back on the top line. Everybody else started originally on that yellow line. Now they've moved up a group to get around the 24. Kenny Kibbe just the fastest lap of the race. It's to that mark where they're 2/10 quicker when they get by Austin Bulkey at the moment.
Yeah, I think the high line is definitely proving to be a better lane right now, because everyone is... and not that high, though. So we just had... What's that, Mark? Yeah, that was Mark getting up in the wall. Now, let me tell you something about these ARCA cars when they get up in the wall. They stay there. They do not come off very easily. Sometimes you have to slam the brakes and crank the wheel to the left to kind of disconnect yourself.
Now in fifth position, Ryan Seneca has now had some trouble at the back of the field. No caution, we stay green. He was originally in about 13th position, now back to 18th spot. As Herzog tries to find a way around the 24. And this is now the tough part, is now that everyone's single file is getting that run to get around the car in front of you when you have the pace.
Yes, here we go. Now we're starting to click the laps off a little bit quicker, that we've got some green flag running. Got one side-by-side battle back in the midfield. By the way, the backside of the field got a little bit mixed up in the restart there, because I think it was a car who restarted at P8, did not get going, and that would have hindered anyone restarting on the outside lane.
Backdrop that Steven Speeds, who's losing several positions, has gone backwards this one, back to 9th position. As now, side by side, this is before. He's now lost the bottom. Herzog trying to find any way he can to get around the 24, painting the yellow line, and nearly hit the bumps, in fact, towards his fender.
Now, I wonder how many of the drivers who are a bit further back are wondering about conserving their tyres around here. Kenny Kibbe's definitely not doing that. He's pulled out a second lead over the rest of the field.
Yeah, J.R. Shepard's really backed it on down, to say the very least, compared to some of the other drivers. It's already about in the 19.3s. Their fastest laps were in the 19 flats in clean space for these competitors just a couple laps ago. And tire fall-off is a major talking point of this racetrack. You can see upwards of 2 seconds of major fall-off here in the span of about 30-40 laps.
Yeah, and this is still a relatively new track here on the iRacing. So, you know, there might be some drivers out there that don't necessarily know that. They might not have done a 100-lap race here before. So it will be interesting seeing which drivers are playing the long game here and which drivers are trying to make it happen right now.
Taking a look from the back end from Austin Bulkey, still defending well, though, and Mark Herzog, have to say, though, he's not been giving up any runs on him or James Lowe. Both of them have just not been able to poke the way around to either the inside or the outside of Bulkey and make it stick.
Oh, got one car real loose out of turn 2, Mike Holloway, but he's able to catch it, but unfortunately he's downstairs now. Oh, and now had a bit of a moment coming up to turn 4. So we're seeing some drivers a bit further back in the field, slipping and sliding out of these corners. That might be the tyres going away, losing a little bit of that rear grip. And that's bad news if they're struggling with that this early on, because it's a long way to go.
Absolutely, at this point, you can see actually some of the back ends kicking out a little bit on the corner exit for a couple of these competitors. Some drivers trying to keep their tires underneath them and may lose some of the right fronts too, though. Some of the lines, such as around here, where it's one of your big movers tonight. It's Adam Shane, who is up tonight, making 8th position into the conversion spots. He's trying to show what he can do. He showed some good speed in several different series in the past on pavement.
Yeah, but let's not forget that I think he's one of those who has already used up his fast repair.
Yep.
So he'll have to be a little bit cautious racing among these guys who can afford to be a bit more aggressive than him.
The thing is, Bill Segal and Mike Holloway are the only drivers behind him who are in that contention. You see Holloway diving his way to the inside after losing those couple spots a few laps ago. Corresponding to the 81. Run into turns 3 and 4, a little bit deeper in the brakes in 1 and 2 as up the track goes Segal. Just can't get clear though with those bumps. You can see how much he just about kicked out trying to keep it off the 81 on the corner.
Yeah, it's a really tricky track to run side by side. Sometimes a really tricky track to run single file around here. These two doing a pretty good job of it, but of course Jason Mendo and Craig behind, kind of waiting for these two to get sorted out. So as they do this, the pack in front of them pulls away.
Rory lost about a quarter to a half a second or so, about 7 car lengths the difference. Holloway again nearly lost down the front stretch, nearly kicked out in 1 and 2, trying to slam the brakes. There's that squeeze effect I talked about. Joe Segala just not allowing Holloway to get a run off the corner.
And there we go. So Mike Holloway gets real loose out of turn, and the bad news for him there, well, 2 bits of bad news. First, he's kind of stuck down low against his people who might be able to pass him up high, and secondly, these drivers behind him will have been able to conserve their tyres, whereas Holloway was burning his off in that battle. That being said, it looks like he might be able to stay ahead of me. No, he's not. He's going to spin, and is that going to bring out the yellow? Yes, it is.
Caution is back out. 58 laps to go for Mike Holloway. He will potentially lose a lap here trying to get the car turned around. Yes, indeed. Kenny Kibbe drives right by him as he just about kept on a late lap. We'll have to battle for the rookie dog now. Here's a look why. And we just talked about it. He was really trying to hold it on that bottom line to gain some spots and just lost it.
Yeah, that worked earlier on in the race. You could run down low there, but as the race wears on, I think it's going to get harder and harder to keep it down low. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Justin, but the pole sit in this league has the option to restart up high?
No,
they don't.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, if I'm Kenny Kibbe, then I'm going to want to try and beat J.R. Shepherd into turn 1 and take that high line from him.
Yeah, J.R. Shepherd really looked like he was trying to save his tires a lot there compared to Kibbe, who was able to run away by about 1.5 seconds before the caution.
You were going to say a but. So what were you about to rebut me on there? Do you think Kibbe wants to be down low?
I was going to say, again, with this series, you have the iRacing regulations that tell you to start on the bottom essentially for him. So he'll start on the bottom. The but is going to be that J.R. Shepherd is someone that saved a ton of tires, is known for saving tires here. Do you think that's going to mean Shepherd might be able to have something in him for this restart?
Potentially. And he might not necessarily decide that until the restart actually takes place. If he gets a bad restart, he might think, okay, I'll try and settle into second and save my tires again. If it gets a good restart, he might go for it.
Who's really impressed you the most tonight, in your opinion?
I'm gonna have to give that to Adam Shane, I suppose. He's been able to rally his way through half the field with, in his first race here. Let's see what he can do in the second half.
Studio signal this time by expected for these drivers, as should know. Holloway is now the only car 1 lap down. Kurt Smith is back on the lead lap as the lucky dog here. 18 cars on the lead lap. And the interesting thing is Austin Belke has been able to hold on to 4th for now. Can he hold on to the top 5 is the big question now that we have him on the high side for this restart.
On the flip side, another driver is Mark Herzog, and the reason why is because I think I've seen him in the wall 3 times today, and he's still in 5th place.
Yeah, absolutely. The tricky part has been getting around that 24 for 4th position to try and battle with the race leaders. But for Kenny Kibbe, he's in control of the field for this restart. 52 to go. Lap 49. J.R. Shepard to his outside. Justin Morton, Austin Belke, Herzog, Lowe, Speeds, and Shane. Zagawa and Menda. Top 10. Speeds and Shane both started. Which positions? Jason Menda. Green flags back out. Good launch from Shepard on the high side, but Kibbe just about gets himself clear and down to the corner. Can he keep it clear out of the corner? Yes, he can. He runs up the lead.
Shepard's car lost traction there on the exit. He was definitely trying to race Kibbe out on the exit of the turn, but I could see his car was kind of just floating. Fortunately, he was able to hold on to second. We got a 3 wide scenario back in 5th place.
Mark Herzog lost it down the front straight away and was able to save it. Now that spurred Lowe off out of the groove again. And this continues to be a rough race for Lowe. He now gets squished now by Speeds. Speeds now with right side door damage from that contact.
Yeah, well, Lowe got up in the wall, so he had to kind of turn down the racetrack to get himself out of the wall. And like you mentioned, almost hooked Speeds when he did that. That could have been bad.
Now Shane is the next driver trying to take advantage. More cars scraping the wall down the back straightaway. Menda this time with the scrape. Shane pushing up the racetrack. Lowe with the squish. Just past halfway. Lowe stops the bleeding at 7th.
These guys are better at hitting the wall on the straight than I am. Whenever I do it in this car, I lose like 5 positions. Here, there we go. Once again, another car bouncing in the wall down there on the straight, but they're able to continue racing.
And the reason you see that is if you make any sort of major contact with the wall, you have the risk of, with the way that this chassis is skewed out, for it to get stuck against that wall and can be hard to unpry it from the fence.
Yeah, it's a magnet. It's very annoying. I say that as a driver of the soccer car on iRacing sometimes. By the way, up front, look at that lead that Kibbe has over Shepard. Again, that might be intentional. That might be Shepard just driving at 95% right now.
It's an interesting time for 95%. Right now, 8/10 is the gap as we follow along right now with Lowe. See him trying to really wheel this thing hard into the corner and taking a bit of a double apex line. Slide it up toward the apex, diving it off the corner in turn 2 for the boost.
Yeah, I like that idea. It's a long enough corner. There's definitely room for 2 apexes each time you get into a turn. So here we go. You gradually get on the brakes here. If you hit the brakes too hard, it can upset the car, and then there we go. That's why you kind of want to make that second apex off. If you never apex on the exit, you're kind of still turning the whole time, and that can cause the car to break free, and we've seen that cause some trouble already tonight.
That was the 6th position with Speeds. Known for his experience on the dirt side, has been racing in this series now. Part-time schedule for the past few months. He's holding on to that spot now by about a car length. Up in front of him, J.R. Shepard still holding off Justin Morton. Meanwhile, they've evened out just about with Kenny Kibbe's pace. Austin Belke and Mark Herzog is also a part of this choo-choo train.
Yeah, I've got to start wondering if this is being done on purpose by Shepard here. You can make an argument either way. And the reason why, if he is doing this on purpose, he knows Morton's not a threat right now because he knows it's so hard to pass around here. But if it's as fast as he can go, that would also make sense because they're going to start running out of laps very quickly, especially if it stays green.
It was about a couple 100 slower last time than Kenny Kibbe, but the difference is still 1.3 seconds. And you make a great point of, if you time this up wrong, you might not have enough laps or enough tire to move for the race win.
Yeah, we had a lot of cautions at the start of this race. We've only 26 minutes. If we go green to the end, this will be over in about 10 minutes or so. So I think if Shepard does have something, he might want to start proving it.
Flying by for these competitors, to say the very least, as now Morton having one of his best runs this season. Morton has been known for really burning up his tires. Part of the reason, look at that steering wheel, Samuel, and you'll see why on the corner exit right about there. Those kicks loose to the right.
Yeah, I just watched our leader for a couple of laps, the 14 of Kenny Kibbe, and I can tell you he seems a lot more relaxed than the drivers behind him right now, and that's because he's not having to fight for position. He's able to coast into the corners. It sounds like he's not using a whole lot of brake. He's lifting off the gas quite early, whereas of course J.R. Shepard can't afford to do that. He's got to drive into the turn and use a bit more brake than he wants to, because if he starts rolling off early, that's just going to open the door for Justin Morton to pass him on corner entry.
I think he just heard you because he actually turned a quicker lap. Both Shepard and Morton did to Kenny Kibbe last time by. This time by Kenny Kibbe in our 19.7, Shepard a 19.775, Morton a 19.710, Belkey the quickest driver for 19.702. So they are kicking it up a notch with 35 to go. It's a matter of can they get enough time to build all those notches back up to being right to the back bumper. It's easy to catch to somebody. It's harder to pass them.
Yeah, Kenny Kibbe ran the 19.6 last time by though. The nice thing about Kenny Kibbe's position is because he has no pressure, he can afford to run a consistent pace and a pace that's not going to burn off his tyres a whole lot, and he can keep clicking off his 19.6s and 19.7s to the end of a race. I'm a little concerned that all these drivers batting over second, fourth, fifth and on back, they're going to be driving at 100%, so their lap times are probably going to go off, more likely to go off the cliff. The car in fifth place, I thought, go a little bit sideways off the turn, but that's just Mark again, number 57, and he scared me a few times tonight.
How scary is that to see a driver, though, have a moment like that if they do have those situations, especially battles like, say you're in a grouping such as this, and all of a sudden, bam, the car in front of you just kicks it out and really lets it hang out from the rear end.
It depends if I have an escape route planned or not. If I have an escape route planned and I know I'm not going to hit him, it's not scary at all. It's actually kind of fun. It's a free position.
Yes, indeed. As long as you don't get any damage while trying to get the free position. That's not so much a free position, it's more so a position on a discount. Still though, 30 laps to go this time. Shepard is now starting to reel time a little bit by bit. He's also changing up his line, taking a little bit harder of a brake, but trying to get a little bit more speed on the corner exit down the front, it looks like the past couple laps. It was actually slower than Kibbe that time by at the stripe.
The aggressor now is Morton. Looks like he's actually trying to change up his line a little bit and try and see if there's a way by Shepard. Oh, we have a battle for sixth position too between Speeds and Lowe.
They're back side by side, right behind all this second and a half back is still Shepard. Here's that battle as Lowe to try to set this up for about 20 laps. Finally does, and finally gets clear. James Lowe back up to sixth position as the caution is out for Jason Menda.
He was in 11th position.
Let's take a look at what happened. This is going to make things interesting for the front pack now, as reason you can see was losing a lot of pace off down the front stretch. Then in turns 1 and 2, sort of trouble, I believe, ensues by the time they get towards the back. Yes.
Yep, single car. And, you know, we might say, oh, Jason, you just pulled out the yellow flag, but honestly, anyone could have done that. Jason was just the first to slide out, and I'm afraid for these drivers, that might not be the last time we see something like that in this race.
Mike Holloway will be the lucky dog this caution flight period, but now it's the true test. Can J.R. Shepard, now that we're approaching go time, be able to actually make a move on Kenny Kibbe, you feel?
Well, it'll be interesting because I think we're going to see a few more cautions here between now and the end of the race. the last 50 or so laps, these drivers have put on a good green flag run, but that's probably because the league admin told them to calm down a little bit after a string of yellows to start this race. Well, I don't think the drivers are going to be calm anymore. You know, we're in the closing laps. They know it's hard to pass, and so the easiest way to make up positions is on the restarts. And I think we're going to see a factic few restarts hit in the last 25 laps here.
I think there's a possibility too. Justin Warden, of course, has been able to keep the tires underneath him tonight. For the most part, he's been having his best run after struggling long runs for the past few weeks or so, the past few months. He's holding on to 7th still. The drivers who took some damage repair, though, were Menda and Shane. And for Shane, he may have just gotten some bad news because he just got himself pinned around down by taking too much damage repair.
Yeah, and that's a result of taking that free repair early on, although it looks like it's going to try and race on this car. We'll see if the admin have anything to say about that. But at worst case scenario, he'll be the only car 1 lap down, so if we get another caution, he'll be able to get the lucky dog and back on the lead lap. And like you just mentioned, Justin, those free repairs, we burnt a lot of drivers towards the back side of the field, burned a lot of those up early on during the race, and I think we might see some cars not finish this race.
There is that possibility. By the way, Shane got lucky because they placed him in front of the leader, but just behind the pace car, so he could get the lucky dog. The inversion spot right now is also owned as well by Joe Segawa. Newcomers and how they've done. Seneca is in 13th. Fly is in 15th. Now Shane, after being inside the top 8 and having to get fender damage repaired, is in 19th. 23 to go. Kitty with a great launch.
Yeah, Shepard not really going to pose any threat for him. Throws it into turn 1 to see if he can get up alongside, but Kibby's easily able to beat him on the exit. Side by side, third and back.
And trying to get clear of Belke, as Belke has been able to get his car back underneath him after struggling off one of the earlier restarts since morning. He lasted down the front stretch. He was able to hold on to it as Herzog trying to find side by side as well. James Moore just behind that. And they've already lost 3 car lengths as finally clear is Austin Belke for third.
Yeah, definitely see cars throughout the field step out a little bit on the XL turn, and we get the yellow.
It's Mike Holloway. And he's lost his motor and has had to take the tow. Already got a repair fixed earlier on from an accident. Let's take a look at what happened. This was at the very back of the field. Boy, we just said that drivers may not finish this race. Well, this is why. For Mike.
Yeah, he wasn't innocent. Well, we'd have to get another angle. The wreck definitely didn't start with him, but I wonder if he could have placed his car better. Oh no, he probably thought he was good there. Yep, he was an innocent victim.
Yeah. Kurt Smith is the car who actually kicked out there to start all of that. Then you have Menda, who after that hit was able to hold on to it, and bam, was actually already right in the line, I think, that Mike Holloway was aiming to go to for the corner.
Yeah, and Holloway's not going to be too pleased about that because he probably thought that he avoided the wreck. Menda kind of didn't really know he was there, I don't think.
Bit of door damage from that. Mike Holloway having to take the immediate tow from that. Under 20 laps to go. And it's looking like it's now Kibby's race to lose now with how he's played it. But for him, he's still got some tough challengers who are in row 2, I think. Belke was able to jump up on that restart as talked about. Curious to see if Belke can try and push his way to a potential big-time finish for him. Would be one of his best finishes of the year, Samuel. Including, as well, last season, too, in the past couple.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing that could hurt Kibby or could hurt any driver is this sounds stupid, is the restart, but by what I mean more specifically is wheel spin. These tyres have 80 laps on them now. As you has to do is break traction on one restart, and that's an open invite for J.R. Shepherd to take a lead.
Hold on to traction with 17 to go. This time by for the restart. Ian Shepherd on the front row, and Kibbe this time, another good launch. Morton with a blistering launch on the top line, jumps up to third.
Oh, contact, and Kibbe's going to get turned around, saves it. Oh, but they do not save it up high. We got cars everywhere.
And a majority of your points leaders involved in this one, and it's a parking lot. Out of turn 2, caution is out. Shepherd sent it in hard and got really hard into the right rear quarter panel of Kibbe and caused a massive incident for his competitors.
Yeah, and I think Shepherd was trying to be polite after the contact. I think he was like trying to lock it down and let him kind of, the 14 kind of gather himself back together, but that kind of just made things worse. It stacked everyone behind him up.
Take a look, and yeah, he tried to get the one on the outside, almost made it, just didn't time up the lining, and right there on the checkup trying to let him save it and gather it up. That stacks up more than significant damage. That brings James Lowe involved, Belke involved. Just about every other driver who is up inside the top 10 is involved, as we look from Brian Dean's view.
And Shepherd is coming into the pits, and of course the reason there is that they penalise a driver in this league that causes a wreck. Well, it's pretty easy to see who that was in that instance. So the 98 is coming in to get some repairs. Obviously, he's not the only car.
And that means James Lowe is now your race leader. And give J.R. Shepherd credit. He said in the past he doesn't like to win in that type of way. And I think that's part of the discussion, potentially too, where now it's Lowe, Spees, Dean, Pearson, and Seneca in the top 5 because of that incident.
Yeah, and Lowe restarted 5th. And by the end of it, he's leading the race in 2 corners.
This championship just took a massive turn, though, because if Lowe can hold on, and depending on how Kibbe, Shepherd, and Morton recover, Lowe can be back in the championship fight. This is exactly what he needed.
By the way, there's still 13 laps left to go. This could all happen again.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it, I think is what some of the drivers may be thinking. But that means only a couple of drivers have not used faster pairs. Lowe and Spees, along with Pearson, Sagawa, Hertzog, Belke are the only drivers in the entire field, Samuel, who haven't had to use a faster pair since what's been an attrition filled one. That was the biggest one by far, instantly. Though, because, again, that could mean James Lowe back in the championship fight, depending on how this shakes out for the 99.
And Belke, the 57 of Mark Herzog, and Lowell Jewell are all out there carrying damage. So again, you say Belke hasn't used a free repair yet, but he does have damage. So I guess this is his way of acknowledging the fact that not be done yet. Especially with what we've seen on that restart, we'll see how things go with now the one to go signal. This race just took an interesting turn. Could set up a crazy next stretch of races. It is Lowe and Spees, Dean and Pearson, Seneca and Ortiz, Menda and Allen your top 8, and Jewell and Kirsten just up some inversion spots right now. Green flags back out, and a good launch for James Lowe on the bottom of the racetrack. Yeah, Paul's right up in front of Spees, so much cleaner for the top 4 there at single file. Fifth on battles where the battles are. Has built already to about 1.2 seconds between first and 5th. But for Spees, with 10 laps to go, he's looking to try and see if he can qualify offset. James Lowe looking for the luck of the weekend so far in PRL competition. It's coming to 9 laps left to go here, so I think a single file for the first 8 cars. That's Lowe, Spees, Dean, Pearson, Seneca, Allen, Ortiz, and Menda. Keep in mind, many of the drivers involved in trouble before are still battling for 9th spot at the moment. That's how deep
they'll have to be in the field, including Mark Kurtzong, Kenny Kibbe, J.R. Shepard. We're all stuck in the midst of traffic with 8 laps to go. That's a contact in front of them. Kibbe having a dodge still more in front of them. As into the wall goes Mike Allen. Caution is out.
Yeah, he was trying to pass Altice. Altice has damage on his number 11 car from an earlier incident and kind of crowds him up against the wall. And the 59 paid the big price there. The 11 continues now with more damage.
Take a look at how this developed, and wow, there was actually a bit of contact in 3 and 4 in the first place, and then car high.
Yeah, I don't think Ruben did anything wrong there, to be honest.
Yeah, Ruben Altice. There's only as high as you can go. You can't run on the catch fence like Kirby fully loaded. But for Mike Allen, his car is no longer with a front clip. In fact, I think he almost lost the radiator pan there. Nope, there it is.
Yeah,
or that may be an air filter. Either way, significant damage.
Yeah, I hope our director's heard of Herbie. It's one of the most famous. Yeah, okay, good. So we this league, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin, does not do green white checkers.
Yes.
But we are essentially going to have a green light checker here probably. We're going to restart this race with about 2 or 3 laps left to go, but if a caution flies again, that's it.
Yes, indeed. You are correct. So, in other words, no pressure. For James Lowe, there is the chance here for this being a major points day, to say the very least. If he also his first victory of the season, if he can hold on. What do you do if you're James Lowe then to make sure you hold on and don't lose this lead in a couple laps?
Well, I think the leader has easily been able to win the race into turn 1 on pretty much every restart bar 2. We had one restart where Bulky lost the race coming out of turn 2, and obviously we had the contact a couple of restarts ago. Well, we are doing another lap here, so it will be a 2-lap shootout.
Absolutely, and for some of these drivers, these can be some of their best finishes of the year so far, and potentially in the series for a couple. What a possible debut story for Ryan Seneca if he can hold on to 5th, for example.
One advantage James Lowe has here, well, it's not really an advantage, but just so you know, he is the only driver in the top 7 that started in the top 10.
That's incredible. But how this race is played out, but there it is there. 2-lap shootout to decide it. Race is official at the white flag. If we get a caution flag, we will finish under caution per series regulations. So we'll have to see how this fares. Right now, though, Lowe and Speeds, Dean and Pearson, Seneca and Altice, Menda and Hertzog are in the inversion rows. First drivers out of those spots, Smith and Shane. Then your points leaders are as far back as 11th, 13th, and 15th, respectively. Green flag's out. Great launch from Speeds. He keeps it side by side for the race lead. They're 3 wide behind him to the corner. Lowe tries to clear himself up the 55 and does. Lap and a half to go.
Yeah, Pearson from 4th. They're not going. That's what picked them all up. We've got one car in the wall, but still pointing straight. So I think we're going to stay green. Here we come. White flag.
Final lap from Nashville. Kurt Smith has been able to get his car back rolling. But for Speeds, one chance to come away with a major victory. James Lowe trying to hold on for his first for the season. Final corners. Speeds can't get there. James Lowe pulls the rabbit's foot and wins in Nashville.
Yeah, Speeds was definitely trying there there. We got one car spinning across the start-finish line. Coming out of turn 2, Speeds tried to diamond the exit, really go down low. I think he lost a tiny bit of rear traction. He might have just had to feather the throttle a little bit. That took away all his momentum, and Lowe was pretty much uncontested by the time they got to turns 3 and 4. So a massive win there by James Lowe. Maybe you could say a bit of fortune involved in that he was able to navigate his way through that wreck on the restart, but when it comes to short track racing, sometimes that's how you get it done.
I'm curious what his thoughts are going to be on this one, because as he burns it on down, guess what too, Samuel? He came in tonight 20 points back after that rough race a few weeks back in this series. He's now back in the championship fight because of that luck going his way and avoiding an incident.
Luck, but also a lot of talent. He did a whale of a job to hold on ahead of the rest of the field in those final 2 laps.
Post-race coverage coming up in just a few moments. You're watching the Global SimRacing Channel for the virtual Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. Back to the virtual Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway for coverage of the BRL's Grand National Series, and what was an interesting one that could change the complexion of this entire championship for the second half of the campaign coming up, and as well potentially for the next couple races. James Lowe was able to avoid the big one in the closing stages of this race to secure his first victory of the campaign by 0.2 of a second over Steven Speed, while Brian Dean rounds out the top 3. A shot with the Speed was the only driver with 0 incident points for tonight's action. Bruce Pearson with a new number is able to come away with P4, one of his best runs of the season, while Ruben Altis rounding out the top 5. Mark Herzog finishes in 6th, a good recovery drive for him. Ryan Seneker and Jason Menda round out the inversion spots. Adam Shane and Kenny Kibbe round out a wacky top 10.
Yeah, unfortunately for the drivers on page 2 here, the race became a bit of a lottery towards the end there, and these are the drivers who numbers weren't drawn. They are Joe Segala in 11th, J.R. Shepherd in 12th, Austin Bolke in 13th, was running up front after starting on pole for a lot of the race, but fell back at the end there. Justin Morton, 14th place, ahead of Andrew Fry, Lee Gadman, Lowell Jewell, Kurt Smith, who I think had a moment towards the end of the race, and Mike Allen rounded up the car on the lead lap. Only one non-finisher today, so there is that to take away from this race, and that's Mike Holloway, 21 laps down.
Your race winner is now standing by. James Lowe comes away with the luck of the season for him so far after having some horrific luck a few weeks back. James, you're the winner in Nashville, and this gets you into the conversation for the championship again. How are you feeling?
It feels great. It's good to have the luck go our way one time. Tonight was a good night for me with the modified race and this race. So I just got a new wheel, so the first half of the race tonight, I was just kind of riding around trying to get used to the car with the new wheel, and I was trying to save tires, and I was hoping it would go green there at the end because I think I had something for him because I saved quite a ton. So, yeah, but luck fell my way, and we didn't have to go up there and run hard for it.
You mentioned the new wheel. What wheel is it, and how much of a difference do you feel it made for tonight so far, and what you felt on this track, especially with it being so bumpy?
Well, I just got the Podium DD1, and I had the AccuForce, and the AccuForce is nice and crystal smooth. The Podium is not, at least not yet. I haven't figured out the sweet spot, so it was kind of last night was the first test for it in the truck race, and then tonight was, more testing, and it worked out.
Now, of course, as mentioned, this gets you back in the championship conversation. You were 20 points back entering tonight, and most of your championship competitors had lost at least 10 to 15 points in ground to you. How does that mean now for your approach for Southern National, knowing with an error good solid run, you're right in the mix of things, and as long as you keep the momentum back up?
Yeah, I mean, I hate those guys had bad luck, but at the same time, it kind of negates my bad luck that I had earlier on in the year. So we're back up in the conversation at least. We'll see how it goes. I'm going out there to try to win, let the points fall where they go, and we'll see how it falls.
Who do you want to thank for the run tonight?
Yeah, I just thank my team, Balls Out Racing, for the continued support. They're blasting me on Twitter right now, congratulating me, so appreciate those guys. And Lowell for putting the league on. I mean, it's a great series. Tonight we had 3 awesome races. And then you guys for broadcasting, man. Y'all do a great job.
Congratulations on the victory tonight. It's your first of the season.
I appreciate it, guys.
James Lowe, once again, your winner tonight here in Nashville. Standing by with second-place finisher Steven Spees is Samuel Ryman.
Yeah, Stephen, I'm used to speaking to you over on the dirt side of things. You're getting it done on a tricky tarmac track tonight. But one thing I want to make note of, you're the only driver who did not have a single incident point all race long. What was your secret?
Just because I'm slow, I guess. I don't know. I just was kind of just riding around, this, like you said, dirt's my main thing, but come over here just because it's a good group, and I was just kind of riding around all night, not really trying to push the issue or anything, and just kind of save my car as much as I could and see where it landed me.
Yeah, well, do you think that soft right foot actually helped you on the exit of the corners? We saw drivers struggling all night long, getting traction coming out of a turn, saw a few drivers spin that way. Was all that dirt experience able to help you there?
I don't know. Maybe it was definitely tricky coming off of both those corners. As the race wore on, I thought I was kind of using up my right rear or something. I looked at lap times and my tires after the race, and they actually looked pretty good. My fastest lap of the race was the last one. So I guess I was a little too conservative tonight. Probably had a 6th place, 7th place car somewhere around there is probably all I had. But unfortunately, those guys up front got tangled and kind of put me in a fortunate position. Hated to see it for them, but I'll take it. That's probably the best I'm going to get out of this.
Well, strong finish to kind of wrap up the first half of the season. What are your goals for the next 6 races?
Same thing. I'm really, anything that's in a top 5 for me is, I think, good. And I'm just trying to improve a little bit from week to week and, gain some car control, like you said before, keep it incident free. I seem to have kind of had a habit of getting turned around in some of these races. So it was good to have one clean and would just like to continue that.
All right. Well, we'll let you go and celebrate. And maybe next time we see you, you'll get 1 point position better.
That'd be awesome. Thanks.
Once again, that is Steven Spees coming home in second tonight. Brian Team comes home in third. And Brian, first things first, a crazy, crazy race. Talk us through your race tonight, especially with the big one, which was one of the biggest incidents of the season.
Oh, I don't know. I lucked into this interview, so with that wreck, I don't know. I'm usually right behind most of the wrecks. I got caught up in 2 of them tonight, and then I got caught up in that one too, but I luckily got turned back around straight and was able to go before everybody else.
How tricky was this race tonight, in your opinion?
Oh, it was a little slick out there. It's hard to pass. I don't know. I try to take it easy and just run a race and finish it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't run too much anymore, so I can't compare it to other tracks, but it seemed pretty hard to pass tonight.
Southern Nashville's next. Your thoughts on that track based on your experience?
Oh, that's a track I got a lot more experience with, but I can't remember the last time I ran it. Oh, I don't know. It's short.
On that note, who do you want to thank for the run tonight?
Oh, I don't. You guys for the broadcast. Everybody else for forcing me to do this interview by wrecking right in front of me, and Lowell for putting the league on.
Congratulations on the run tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Brian Dean with the third place run, one of his best finishes of the season. Samuel, real quickly, your final thoughts on this one.
Well, it definitely got a little bit ugly there towards the end, but you know what? We still had great racing throughout the field all day long. I just want to make a note, Justin. You say the next race is Southern National Motorsports Park. I was there on iRacing when the official series was there a few weeks ago. And I really hope these drivers can put on a cleaner race of the official series races there, because this car on that track, it creates a little bit of chaos.
That's to say the very least. It's going to be interesting to say the very least. But I'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's exciting action once again from Nashville. We'd also like to thank the Bootleg Racing League for organizing this exciting series, as well as the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed up on screen. Additional thanks go to Jude Law, and provides your wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks as well to the team tonight, and Samuel and Sean. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can check out our merchandise for sale at gsrc.storevy.com. Or check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head over to YouTube page and hit the big red subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so you don't miss a moment with Global SimRacing Channel. As talked about, the next race is at Southern National. That's again February 13th. Be sure to tune in. Green flag scheduled for approximately 9 p.m. Coverage starts at 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time here on GSRC. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on screen, so be sure to check those out and mark them down your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.